All right, the Purge season finale is here. I've watched it. Let's discuss it. I hope you guys have as well, because as usual, spoilers. And this is the season finale. This is it. And with the ratings and all this stuff, I'm going to guess this is probably going to be the last episode. I wouldn't be shocked if it was renewed, but I'd be surprised. You know, I'm kind of in that middle of like, I would guess it probably won't, but at the same time, if it did, I know USA doesn't have a ton of shows that are really killing right now, except for like The Sinner. Isn't that on here? I think that is. I've never watched that show, but I've heard literally not one bad thing about it from any single person I've ever heard talk about it. Incredible how well liked that show is. So I got to get on that eventually, and I will. So let's talk about the Purge. I think, what was this? A Nation Reborn, right? That's the name of the episode. All right, so I had made a few predictions here. I already said spoilers, right? Yeah, I think we're well aware of that. I had made a couple predictions that Joe was definitely going to die. Don't know if I'm right about that. They left it off in such a way where it's like, if they renew the season, I can only assume that they're going to bring Joe back. You know, he'll be in an eye patch and whatever. So maybe Joe's dead, maybe he's not. I don't know why Miguel wouldn't just shoot him in the head or wait there for like another couple minutes to make sure he never came back up. They only waited there for like fucking 20 seconds. That's silly to me. And the pool is so gross that you can't see through it. Okay, I mean, it did look like a pretty beat up place, but... And there was not one single... He had the whole school to himself. Of course, this is a show, and you just got to look past those things, but he set up, rigged an entire school during Purge night without anyone coming and distracting him at all. He did say he put himself at great risk, and he could have been killed 10 times over, and whatever, but... I don't know. There's a lot of suspension of disbelief in the Purge movies. I guess a whole country allowing the Purge to happen is a suspension of disbelief enough. But regardless, anyway. Now, anyone who noticed this or can go back, I would love to go back, actually. In the opening of this, when Joe and Pete are, you know, going to attack the guys that are coming after them. They're going to go on the offense because they think they're running. The guy that Pete strangles, I think we have a Roadhouse scenario here. Now, in Roadhouse, there's this scene where they get into a fight, and that's every scene in the movie. Oh, that really narrows it down. No, there's a scene where the guy gets punched in the nose, and I'm sure if you've seen this enough like I have, you've noticed it. Right before he gets punched in the nose, you can clearly see he's bleeding from the nose. It's hilarious. And I've seen it in a few other films, but for some, I always say Roadhouse. I swear the guy's bleeding around his neck. That could have happened to this guy. I don't know this guy. I've never seen him before. Maybe he had blood on him from something else, but it looked like he was bleeding from the neck, like right here before he was even choked out. So maybe they did the take and then they redid it and they just didn't clean him up well enough. But I swear he was bleeding just in the area where he was strangled. I swear. So please, someone look for that. But they take some of these guys out. I'm still just like really didn't see where they ran off to. If you watched my last breakdown of this, you'll know what I'm talking about there. But that's so silly. And yeah, I mean... It's weird. I know that Rick definitely fucked Joe here. Absolutely. And what Rick did was unforgivable. And anyone who can say the words, "It's just business," and thinks that's okay, and can sleep with themselves at night and actually believes what they're saying to be true. Like, sorry, man, it's just business to fuck you. Everyone fucks everybody. If Rick truly meant what he was saying there, I am so glad that he died, because wow, what a delusional piece of shit. I can't even believe people actually think about that, but there are people out there like that, tons and tons of them. It just baffles my mind, like how you could do that to somebody and actually be okay with it. Well, anyway, But then there's this, the whole thing where he's putting a security system together, right? Essentially, to hold them in prison so that he can judge them accordingly and whatever. And he fucks that job up. He leaves a bolt like this far out. It's not even just like a little bit. It's a lot. And it's ironic seeing as how, Rick is like, Joe, you did a shitty job. You did a shoddy job. And Joe's like, no, my stuff was top notch. And it's like, you couldn't even fucking secure a bolt. Like, in a cage. It was sticking out this fucking much, dude. I don't know. That made it seem like they were trying to imply maybe he did do a shoddy job. But Rick's confession seemed legit. I don't see him making that kind of stuff up, what he said. So he really did fuck him. Like, he had to cut corners, so he found a loophole and this and that. I don't think he could have made that up on the spot. So I think Joe probably did sufficient work, but they did show Joe as incompetent. And there's another thing in here, a couple, I think maybe, at least one I can think of, that doesn't really go with the character that's set up. I also was pretty surprised and happy that Jane was actually dead. I had hoped she was, because that gave weight to it. It was just like, no, she's dead. Like, they didn't even show her body. It was like, oh no, she's gone. So I did like that they stuck to that. And him making Jenna pull the trigger on her husband. The fact that she does do it too. Like, yeah, I mean, there was no bullet in there. She didn't have to do it. But, I mean, she shot her husband. There just so happened to not be a bullet in there. So she either wanted to protect her kid and save her own life that bad, which I understand. And it was the only thing to do because he was going to kill her anyways. And Rick was like, do it. So I completely understand that. Or she really was like, you son of a bitch. Like, you put us in this situation. She says that to him, like, we're here because of you or whatever. And it's, in that moment, she's just like, you motherfucker. And that is some shady ass shit. And we have to think, like, Jenna lost the two loves of her life in this night. Like, you can think whatever you want of her. You can think the whole storyline was stupid. You can think the character is lame. But putting all that aside, in reality, if you want to, talk about this character did lose the two people she loved. She lost the father of her child, who hadn't even been born yet, and she lost Lila, who she, I think, really actually was in love with, even though Lila was way off. But she's just attracted to nutty ass people, clearly. Anyone who would just say business, use business, is a cunt. But yeah, I mean, I was pretty impressed with her by pulling that trigger. That must have been hard as shit. And what a horrible trick. I mean, it is just fucked up. But he was going to let her live. I mean, he was like, I'm a man of my word. I will let you live. I mean, who knows if he would have actually done that. He seemed like he was pretty hoity-toity with it, though. Like, he really wanted to rub that in his face. Like, I made a deal, Rick, and I stick to mine. That's why you're dying, because you don't. So I do think he would have let her go. So Rick ends up dying. Jenna ends up living like it would have happened anyways, even if they didn't get away. And then, yeah, Penelope getting the bolt out and doing all this. It's, it is what it is, but she does. And then freaking Joe turns his back and walks at them, leaving Jenna uncuffed right there when he knows that she could go up and grab any one of his weapons or free her husband or whatever. Like, that's silly. That's just silly stuff right there. And there's a few silly things in this episode that are all just too convenient. They're too convenient. A lot of stupid character decisions. Then once they get free, like, yeah, Penelope comes up and stabs him in the eye. But then why isn't Rick or Jenna or anybody grabbing the weapons that are on the table and shooting him while he's incapacitated by having something in the eye? Yes, he goes to fire on them a couple seconds later, but they had a good few seconds to take this guy out, all four of them together, as he has a fucking bolt in his eyeball. He wouldn't even be able to see or function. And that thing was deep enough. would have went through his brain and killed him. But that's nor here nor there. I'm just saying it's, I don't know, that's silly. I did like that Rick and Pete used the booby traps. That's what I said, booby trap, to kill these guys. And I was like, please do that, because that has to happen. It's pretty obvious, but it was one of those things where it was like, if they don't do this, I'm going to be annoyed. But they did, and kills almost all but one of them. And I thought it was interesting too, because when the guys moved on the ground, I thought for sure it was the bounty hunter. And I was like, that is just dumb. The guy who sets off the trap, the trap that should kill him for sure. Anyone else might live, because, there might be outside of the blast radius, whatever. And maybe, the bounty hunter dude took the majority of the blast and protected them, whatever. So when the guy moved, and I was like, oh, don't make it the bounty hunter. But I thought story-wise, because he was the one that was after them, it would have made the most sense, because he had the most, emotional investment in this, for us to be like, oh shit, he's back, he wants vengeance. It's just some random bodyguard. So it's kind of weird, because on one side of the thing, I'm like, yeah, that is what would happen, so thank you. But at the other side of it, it's kind of like, well, this guy didn't really care. Not really. Once the bounty hunter was dead, like, these other guys were just there because he was telling them to be there. But yeah, he just walks in, he's just some random dude, and he kills Rick. Like, Rick gets killed by a random dude. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't have as much weight as if it was the bounty hunter. But as I said, I'm contradicting myself, because I was like, there's no way that bounty hunter's still alive. He took the majority of the blast. So I know I sound ridiculous in that moment. There's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing. But I'm actually kind of glad it was just a random guy. I mean, if I'm going to be honest here, it's like, oh, good. Like, it doesn't have to just be someone, but I know. I think I just completely broke apart my own argument, but yeah, oh well. Then Paige, who's the other girl in the cell with them, who doesn't really have much screen time or lines, she goes and gets her ass blown up, which I thought that was great. The way her body gets thrown back against the wall and falls onto the fucking ground is gnarly. But that's it. It's open. Penelope. She just set off the fucking charge that blew that whole door up, right? So, go out that exit. The thing has been disarmed because it's been blown up. I don't know. That was silly to me. Yeah, maybe she's scared of it because, like, maybe there's more, but if there was more, they would have been blown up. So, why she didn't just run out that door after the bomb went off is just ridiculous to me. But she doesn't, so we'll have to just accept it, right? I did like Penelope's argument against the Purge. I thought the way she worded all of that, and like, if the Purge really worked, wouldn't we eventually not need it anymore? Like, yeah, all that's going to be left is murderers, and all that's going to be left are purgers and people who've gotten it out, or there's whatever. Like, her argument, the way she all worded it, I mean, I'm paraphrasing really poorly, but I thought she made a great argument. You could see in his face, he was like, shit. And Jane did the same thing to him earlier. Like, he got called out for how full of shit he was a couple times, and you could see him being like, oh, fuck, they're right. No, fuck that. It's my country, whatever. He was just so delusional at this point, even with as much logic, no matter what anyone shoved down his throat. He was too convinced. He was just too far gone into this psychosis of like, this is my right, and I'm fucking doing this, and you're not talking me out of it, no matter how much sense you make. But I did think Jane and Penelope both made great, great arguments. And so, yeah, it was just, he was dedicated. Or committed, right? There you go. He should have been committed. Now, another thing here. Okay, Miguel's shooting him in the chest, which is into the bulletproof vest, then into the knee, and then kicks him in the water. And then he just watches him float and whatever. And Pete clearly knows that this happened after the Purge, right? So, Pete's backstory is that there was a bunch of cops that were going out and getting vigilante justice because they thought that criminals weren't getting the punishments that they deserved and whatever. And Pete went out and stopped that That was like how he got known. That's how he became Pete the Cop, how he became untouchable guy. And then he turns he turns a blind eye to Miguel killing someone after the Purge, vigilante justice style. But he's okay with helping him do vigilante justice, in the Purge. But he did save his life, so I'm not saying that this is completely unbelievable. It just seemed interesting that they set up Pete's character to be against vigilante justice. Unless I'm mistaken, unless I heard that story wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the story we were told about Blue Friday, right? Isn't that what it was called? Whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm glad he didn't do anything. I mean, that would have been lame if he was like, I'm turning you in. Like, no. I mean, they came there to do something, and they finished the job, and we don't rattle. A little 1408 quote there for you, because that movie's fucking amazing. All right, and then it moves to 1 year later, which I was not expecting at all. So I think that if they do have a second season, it will pick up right there. I would expect. Maybe not. I would be totally fine and I don't know. I would prefer a new story. A different city, all new people, 12 hours of the Purge again, do 12 episodes, make them an hour long, do like fucking real-time 24 style. And yeah, new characters. Because I don't want to see I just want to believe that Joe drowned. Because it is so dumb that Miguel risks his freedom to kill him after the Purge. And I feel like Joe, being as American as he is and plays by the rules and wants to rat on everybody, yeah, maybe he'd plan his revenge for a year. But I feel like he'd go to the cops and be like, hey, he shot me after the Purge. And maybe he did. And the cops were like, can you prove it? And he's like, no. And they're like, well, sorry. And then he's even more pissed at the system. And he's like, fuck this. So, I don't know. I'd be fine either way, but I think I would prefer a whole new set of characters. But I guess with the Miguel and Penelope storyline, we would get all new characters besides them, because Jenna moved to freaking France, right? Which, who wouldn't? Really? Especially when Rick's like, next year we're taking a cruise. Why the fuck anyone wouldn't do that? That's like what everyone should be doing. The country should be pretty much empty on Purge night. Hell no, I would not stick around. I wouldn't even live in the country. I'm sorry. If you get the Purge and so, fuck out. I don't care. I don't care what I had to do to get it. So this would be like the one time where you wouldn't want to get deported back to the United States, right? That's what they'd have to do. Punishment. And then we find out that Miguel and Penelope become medics. When Pete was shot, I was like convinced. I was like, oh, there he goes. He's dying. And then I realized it was the leg, and I was like, oh. And then Rick dies, and it was like, but he just was saved. And then he's just shot by a random guy, and then he just dies in a hallway. And I don't know. Overall, I liked it. I definitely didn't love it. It wasn't like some fantastic finish. I would have liked a bigger fight between Miguel and Joe. I would have liked, a little more surprises, because I said that Joe and Rick and Pete were going to die. And those are the three people that are injured in this and either almost die or do die. So I did call the three people. But Pete definitely lives. Joe more than likely lived if they're going to do a second season. And Rick definitely died. But yeah, so anyway, guys, I think that's about all I have to say on this matter. And that's it. The Purge is over. Oh, well, we got American Horror Story tomorrow. That's got 2 episodes left. And I'm sure I'll find something else TV show-wise to talk about. But let me know what you guys thought. Let me know what your favorite episode of the season was. I'd have to think about that. I want to say it was like, I was really excited about it when it happened. I want to say it was like episode 7 or 6, something like that, somewhere in that area. I can't remember. Like, I remember events, sort of, but I don't want to eat up too much more time. Episode. Also, tell me if you would want a second season. Obviously, your thoughts on the whole season and this episode. And also, if you do want a new season, do you want us to be this storyline continued, or do you want a whole new story? Just let me know. Otherwise, good night, guys.